So I have another vehicle here to introduce to the channel. This one I've had for probably about 5-6 years. Bought it as a daily driver and drove it that way probably for about 3 years, and then unfortunately had an accident. Still drove for a little bit longer, and then ended up actually buying a Challenger that I had for 1.5 years. It was a 15 Dodge Challenger RT. That's probably save that for another video, but I wasn't a big fan of that car, but had it for a little while. But anyway, here is the next thing I'm going to introduce. This is a 2009 Chevy Cobalt SS. And if you're familiar at all with these, this is the turbocharged version. They made these models, well, I guess they made the Cobalt in general, 2005, 2010. Kind of had a bad rap. Quality issues, interior issues, things like that. But the reality is, it's actually a pretty good car. The SS was made, I believe, every model year. And there are two versions. 05 to, was it 2005, 2007? There was a supercharged version, and then this came out in 08, and they made it for 3 years. They didn't make many. Turbocharged version. And the turbo version had a lot more upgrades than simply just a slightly revised engine. We'll go through some of the things it currently has, but I guess the first question is wondering, well, it doesn't really look totaled, or it doesn't look wrecked. Well, I'm not sure if you can totally see with this light. It's like late afternoon, early evening here. Kind of try to get some of the sky reflection there. A little bit more over here on the hood. The car's not particularly clean. There's really no point in keeping it super clean. As you can probably tell, it's got a lot of hail damage. I was working on the west side of the metro down in Denver back in 2017. I can't exactly remember what it was, but a big hailstorm came in. I remember looking off the 7th floor of the office I was in, looking down, seeing all the cars, seeing my car parked down there, and just watching huge golf ball, bigger than golf ball size hail just destroy the cars in the parking lot, including this. I actually, quite a few cars had windows smashed. Somehow the windows on this survived. But yeah, believe it or not, this thing was, from that accident, this thing was totaled. It has a clear title. Apparently in the state of Colorado, if it's a cosmetic total on the vehicle, you don't have a salvage title. So this still has a perfectly clear title. It drives perfectly fine. It works just as good as it always used to. But unfortunately, it doesn't look that good. Probably from about 10 feet away in the right light, you can't even notice. But obviously, if you get up close, it's bad. I mean, and it got everything. The front bumper and the rear bumper being plastic, it didn't do anything to that. Quarter panels are, I guess they're probably okay. Doors, couple dings in the doors. The rear quarters are a couple small dings. But the hood, the roof, the trunk, everything's just destroyed. And the reason they totaled it is actually the roof. You could throw a new hood on it, new trunk, try to pull out all the dents on the quarter panels inside. You probably get pretty close. Trouble is the roof. They'd have to, I don't know, they'd have to cut the roof and put a new roof in, repaint it, and it's just, with the value of the vehicle, apparently it's just not worth it. So it was totaled. But you know, I drove it for a little bit after it was totaled, and then kind of just parked it. Didn't know what I wanted to do, and in the meantime, really liked the look of the Challenger, so went out and actually bought like I said, I bought that 2015 Challenger, and let's see, I had the Camaro, I had the SS1LE at the time. I still do, but it was a pretty new car then, and man, they're just not in the same league. I mean, the Challenger, the RT, it's got decent power, but it's just, the cars, like in general, it's just, like I said, I can make a whole video on comparing the Challenger and the Camaro, which it's so shocking to think that I think the Challenger outsells the Camaro right now. Now, admittedly, the new Camaros on the nose are pretty ugly. If you want to buy a Camaro, get a 16 to 18 or Z01, because man, their front end's a lot better looking. But anyway, that's a whole different story. So anyway, let's let's go through a few things on this, a few of the details. I guess we'll fire it up first. It does have a few modifications. Okay, so let's fire this thing up. It does have a cracked windshield, unfortunately. Which recently happened. I have to get that fixed. But so this car has a few modifications. Definitely improves the sound a bit. You can probably hear. You just close the door to kind of give the interior sound, but sounds pretty good. I mean, for a 4-cylinder, I'm not a huge 4-cylinder guy. I've owned, I guess I've had a couple Cavaliers, kind of just daily driver beaters over the years. It's probably the first ever performance 4-cylinder that I've owned, and man, most of them sound pretty bad. But this, what this thing has, I don't know, it sounds pretty good. So let's kind of check out what's going on under the hood. One thing I do like about Cobalts, and I think some people probably don't, is the door. Like if you're in tight traffic, door opens pretty big for a coupe. I know that's, or not tight traffic, tight parking, but the car's rolling backwards. It's in neutral. I guess it's not perfectly flat here, but the doors open way wide. Now, I don't know exactly what you need that for, but that is incredibly wide. There's actually 1, 2, 3 notches before you close the door. So anyway, just a random thing. It's got that classic ticking sound because it is direct injected. So it is a 2-liter direct injected 4-cylinder, turbocharged. It's got, I remember when I first got it, I heard this ticking noise. I was like, because I bought it used, and I was thinking, oh, what, is there something wrong with it? And I had to go online, and that's just the sound of the injectors as the car secretly rolls away. Oh no, come back, no. Okay. Apparently found the flat spot in the driveway. So, yeah, 2-liter direct injected 4-cylinder, mostly stock under here as well. Excuse me. Does have a K&N intake. Looks pretty gross. Probably need to clean that thing. And that thing actually, it's worth a couple $100 for that just to get the turbo sounds out of it. They really mask the turbo, the wastegate noise, things like that. I believe it's an internal wastegate on that stock turbo on there. Yeah, that was a cool mod just for sounds. I mean, I guess, I don't know, helps a tiny little bit. But anyway, yeah, other than that, pretty much stock under the hood. I'm not gonna bother revving it per se. It's nothing too exciting, but does have ZZ Performance catback exhaust, and you can see how the tip is not centered. I've tried adjusting that multiple times. You literally have to go under there and probably put like a hose clamp or something on the adjuster and force it to the right, because it constantly shifts back to the left. But anyway, it sounds pretty deep. Sounds pretty good for, like I said, for a 4-cylinder. Turbo, I guess technically the turbo, you know, muffles it a tiny bit, but yeah, the setup is pretty good. I think it's pretty good. All right, so shut this thing off. So modifications, nothing really in the interior, pretty much stock in here. It's got an old school ZZ Performance sticker that was actually on there when I bought it. I just left it on there. Does have the, I don't think I showed it before, but this little digital display, despite the fact that it has this massive housing for a little like 3-inch screen or whatever it is, it's actually pretty cool. Standard, actually, I think it's an option on the SS's. I think otherwise you could have just had a boost gauge right here. But it'll show, I mean, I use it just for the boost gauge, but it'll show a lot of different settings, a lot of things you probably don't even need to know. But in fact, why don't I just cycle through them right now? Okay, quick little update on this. Hopefully you can kind of see this. It's kind of hard to do because I have to get the camera right up against it and I can't really see very well. But it has quite a few different settings. This is the one I usually leave it on. Boost gauge. This is a stock tune, so it'll go up to 15 psi. 260 horsepower is what this thing's rated at. And apparently that's a little underrated because I've heard these things make like 250 at the wheel. And if that's the case, then it's definitely making more than 260 at the crank. So anyway, I usually keep it on this setting. Coolant temperature, intake air temperature, and then fuel pressure, which is obviously really high because it's direct injected. But you can cycle through and get different settings: air fuel ratio, cam phaser angle. So apparently, is that going to do anything if I rev it? All right, okay. Spark advance, engine power, is that going to do anything? I don't know. I'm not sure how accurate that really is, but okay, it's torque reading. Is there a horsepower reading? No. Mile per hour is a little G-force meter. I think, yeah, that takes it back to the boost. You can change the setting on the left here. Barometer, outside temperature, battery voltage, tire pressure. That is wrong. It does not have 74 psi. Should be 30, low 30s, like 32. So that's off. It could be actually because I just put a battery back in this thing, and I don't think the sensors have read right with the TPS sensor in the tire. So anyway, those are off. Is that it? Okay, let's go back. Oh, gauge. This thing's so dumb. It tells you what, not gauge, what gear you're in the transmission, but it's so slow. If you're shifting through gears, it can't keep up. So that's never bothered there. And this is the one and this is the setting I usually keep it on. Anyway, it's kind of a cool feature, and that was 2009, actually 2008. That would have been the first year they came out with this. So that's pretty cool. They stuck it on a kind of an economy sports vehicle back then. The gauge and the housing are pretty dated, but what it shows is pretty cool. So anyway, that is that. So I'll talk about a few of the modifications for this, that this thing has. Interior wise, pretty much stock. This is how it came. I always like these seats, even though they're just vinyl. It's a lot of red, but I thought it looked kind of cool. Shifter's pretty good for a factory shifter, especially in a car like this. Steering wheel is out of the Corvette. That would be a C6 Vet wheel. I think they used that steering wheel on multiple vehicles back in the mid to late 2000s. But that's basically the same wheel as the Vet, the leather and the way it bolsters here and switches and everything. But yeah, it's the inside. On the outside, it sits kind of high. Suspension is stock. It doesn't look great. The wheel gap there is pretty bad, but those are the original wheels. When I got it, they were painted black and the paint was chipping off. So I had them stripped, got them powder coated. Those are kind of a semi-gloss powder coated wheel. Pretty new tires on there. I actually just put those on. Yeah, so it came with a 225 wide tire on an 18-inch wheel. I put 235s on there. Kind of just fills out the wheel a little bit better. So not really a modification, but I did paint the wheels or again a powder coat, and I think it looks pretty good against the black, especially the tinted windows, things like that. The wing is gone. This would have had the big high-rise wing that just, I don't know, just doesn't look good on cars like this. And I think it looks really clean with no wing at all. Not with these holes and the scuffed up paint and everything, but this is, I took the wing off after the damage had already occurred from the damage from the hail had already occurred. So it was just something to do, kind of see what it looked like. And, you know, I like it a lot better despite the fact that you have holes in there, but not worried about it for now. Took all the badges off on the back just because it looks so much cleaner without, and I would have taken this off as well, except I guess the previous owner had gotten in there with a screwdriver and tried to pry it off, and there's actually a couple dents and scratches behind it. So I just painted it and stuck it back on. But it's really clean from behind. Obviously the Corvette inspired look from the 2000s. Nothing else really. Like I said, stock brakes, stock suspension. Although I will say, 4-piston Brembos. Technically the rotors are aftermarket, but I think they're ZZP rotors. But yeah, for a car that's a little less than 3,000 pounds, this thing, it's got pretty good brakes, especially being stock. So under the hood, like I said, I think it's pretty much just the intake. Is there anything else? No, I don't think so. You can replace this plastic downpipe with a much cleaner, like ZZP. Well, a bunch of people make them, but ZZP makes a really clean one. It comes off here and then does a 90, come down. It kind of gets rid of this flat spot. I don't think it really does anything for performance at the just stock boost levels, but it looks a lot cleaner. I actually do have a downpipe for this, because one of the restrictions on this car is the factory downpipe's a little too small. So a lot of the popular upgrades on this, you get a tune, you can be over 300 horsepower, probably get 300 at the wheels, to be honest, just with a basic tune and a downpipe. This thing having the exhaust, the intake as well, it'd be pretty easy to get there. Probably not going to bother, because this thing's it's kind of come back as a daily driver this summer, and probably going to drive it that way for a few more months, and then I have some big plans. So this is probably how it's going to remain for a little bit longer. Next, let's talk about plans for this car, because I have some pretty big plans for this car. In fact, in some ways, it might be part of the reason why I wanted to even get this channel going, is what I plan on doing to this. Currently, the fastest car I own is it's probably my Corvette 2019 Grand Sport, stock. So it's got the newest generation LT1. I think it's rated like 460 in that car, horsepower wise. It's quick, even at elevation up here. That thing's quick, 7-speed manual. This thing is nowhere near that. Well, I shouldn't say that. With the little turbo up here at elevation, it's not bad, but it's nowhere near that right now. And even the tune wouldn't get it quite there. But I have some plans for that Vet that involve boost. So that's going to be a project coming up. Unfortunately, the Vet's probably going to be parked for the winter pretty soon. So it's probably something I'm going to look at kind of like late winter, springtime to work on that. So I do want to get some more power out of the Corvette. But even that being said, I think ultimately this car is going to be faster with what I want to do to it. Pretty radical changes, updates to this car. I kind of decided, because of its current condition, with the hail damage and everything, and just, maybe it's an opportunity to do something fun with it. And apologize for the wind. It's, as you can see, a random little wind blowing up here. Okay, back inside again, because it's getting a little bit windy out there, and I'm not sure how much that's picking up with the camera here, but anyway. So long-term plans with the Cobalt. Big big plans. This thing's going to be quick. Like I was just saying, I think this has the potential to be very quick. Pretty excited to talk about that, although I got to wait a little bit, because it's going to take some time before things align and everything works out for what I'm going to do with this car. But yeah, some pretty big plans coming up. So hope you enjoyed the intro to the Cobalt here. A lot of fun stuff coming up with this car. A lot of fun stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.